Welcome to the Eagles Checkdown, right here on the Eagles Pinpool Podcast Network. I'm Phil Stifle, your host. You can find me on all social media platforms at Bearded Knowledge, and it's Eagles Bengals preview and prediction as we get set for Sunday's matchup against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Really weird that the Eagles have struggled so much with the Bengals over recent memory. The last 4 times the Eagles faced the Bengals, they're 0-2-2. And the last 5 times, or only 5 times they've ever played in Cincinnati, they're 0-4-1. And so it's really weird, a team that they haven't played that many times, they've struggled with a lot lately. I was listening to a clip on social media from Tyrone Johnson from the Fanatic, the afternoon show. And he asked a question I thought was really interesting. Does Jalen Hurts have to outduel Joe Burrow for the fans? And I thought it was a really interesting question because we're constantly sitting here thinking that Jalen Hurts has to do X, Y, and Z. Jalen Hurts did what we wanted him to do. He had 2 straight turnover-free games, and we won both of them. You don't win against the Bengals by throwing the ball and outdueling Joe Burrow. I'm looking at the numbers. They're one of the worst teams run defense-wise, the Bengals. They've given up 170 yards of rushing to the Pats, 149 to the Chiefs, 155 to the Panthers, 175 rushing yards to the Ravens. All but the Panthers were losses. You beat the Bengals by keeping the ball out of the hands of Joe Burrow. And how do you do that? You do that by running. You lean on Saquon Barkley. You lean on the offensive line that does so well at run blocking. The one big weapon on defense, Trey Hendrickson's got 7 of their 7 of their 12 team sacks. Fred Johnson struggles in pass protection. You don't put them out on the island there. You run the ball where they're effective. That is how you beat this team. So to answer Tyrone's question, we don't even need Jalen Hurts to outduel him. It's this mental thing that the fans have that we want to see Jalen Hurts throw for 350 yards, 5 touchdowns. But that's not the identity of the Philadelphia Eagles. We've wanted them to have an identity. They have an identity, and we're not accepting of that identity because it's not pretty the way Jalen Hurts does it. So that's something to keep in mind. Real quick, from the Thursday practice report, Zach Bond was back as a full participant in practice. Dallas Goedert and Mekhi Becton still are not practicing, so I'd expect them to be ruled out before the weekend for the game. Another little interesting stat, and I want to credit my man Anthony DeBona from PFN and PSN. Vic Fangio did coach against Joe Burrow once a few years ago in 2021 when he was coaching the Broncos. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals won that game 15-10, low-scoring affair. But Vic Fangio's defense was able to hold Joe Burrow to 15-22 passing, 157 yards. They sacked him 3 times. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, their 2-star wide receivers, had a combined 3 catches for 26 yards. So it seems like the Bengals or Vic Fangio has an idea on how to slow down and stop Joe Burrow. So we're going to be relying, if we're going to win this game, on running the football, on controlling the clock. I'm looking at all the time of possessions for the Bengals. Every single loss this year, they've lost the time of possession battle to their opponents. Keeping the ball out of Joe Burrow's hand is how you beat the Bengals. They don't create a lot of turnovers. They don't give the ball away. They're +2 in the turnover game. Honestly, even keeping the ball out of Joe Burrow's hand doesn't mean they're going to win, but it gives you a better chance because they've only scored 38 points the last 2 weeks against 2 bad teams in the Giants and the Cleveland Browns. 21 points last week against the Browns, and they only scored 17 against the Giants, which was really only 10 until they had a big breakaway touchdown with less than 2 minutes left in the game. So you can control and slow down Joe Burrow. You just that is how you win. You just give them as few opportunities as you can. That's how you do it. So I thought they were some interesting things. The key battles obviously going to be Trey Hendrickson against Fred Johnson. Do I think they do it? Do I think that they're going to be capable of beating the Bengals? Right now, when I'm recording this on Thursday night for the Friday, October 25th episode of the Eagles Checkdown, I'm not 100% confident. I'm going to shout out a 24-21 Eagles win, but I'm not confident, and that may change as the weekend goes on as I continue to evolve my thought process on this game. I hope the Eagles can win. I think they can win. I think it's a tough spot for them. They have not had success. I think you're going to hear a lot this weekend about the Eagles not having success in Cincinnati. I think that's going to be an overblown stat. It's just weird by my opinion. But every year, they've played only 5 times ever in Cincinnati. So they're not often playing in Cincinnati. So every time it's a different team, a different coach, a different philosophy. So I think it's just a coincidence there that happened. So right now, Friday morning when you're listening to this, I'm predicting the Eagles will win 24-21 by keeping the ball out of the hands of Joe Burrow. If it's a 31 kind of point game, or if the Eagles need to score 30-plus points, then that means Joe Burrow is actually pushing the tempo of the game and getting a lot of offensive opportunities. In that case, a high-scoring game, I will predict that the Bengals will win it. But if they could keep Joe Burrow 24 points or less, the Eagles win the game. If the Bengals go over 24 points, that's when I think the Eagles have a little bit of trouble there. Last week, there were a lot of bangers on the card in the NFL slate. Every team's playing this week, and I don't see as many good games this week. Obviously, the Bears-Commanders game is a pretty popular game. That's why we're playing at 1 o'clock instead of the original pre-scheduled 4 o'clock. The Bears-Commanders are 2.5-point favorites in Washington. And Sunday Night Football, Dallas at San Francisco. San Fran's a 4.5-point favorite. I don't know how to even predict that game with all the injuries on both sides of the ball and the fact that Dallas just hasn't been good. I believe Dallas is coming off the bye, so maybe that gives them a little bit of a chance there. But if I'm looking at games that I'm really eyeing up this week, to enjoy, that Bears-Commanders game is going to be fun to watch. If Jaden Daniels plays in that game for the Commanders, that is. There's not too many lines I like this week. I do like the Falcons -2.5 at the Bucks. Bucks will be missing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for a large part of the rest of the year for Evans, and the rest of the year for Godwin. So that's that. Obviously, we'll be looking at the Miami game with Tua making his return for the Dolphins this week, most likely. That should be an interesting. We got a lot of big lines this week. 11-point line spread. Ravens are up favored by 9.5. The Chiefs are favored by 10. Broncos favored by 9.5. So it's a really tough week to bet. But if I'm going to zone in on a line, then yes, I'm looking at the Falcons, 2.5-point dogs. I'll take the Falcons at 2.5 as my lock of the week, guys. This is the Eagles Checkdown right here on the Eagles Pinball Podcast Network. If you want to hear a longer version, just check it out. Trending in the AM, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. On Friday, I will have Shane Haff from the Pinball Podcast Network helping me break down the Eagles-Bengals game in more detail. The link is down below. Just copy and paste it and go find me on the STT Sports Network on YouTube every single morning, guys. I am Phil Stiefel. Have a great weekend. We will see you Monday for an Overreaction Monday. Go Birds, and bubbles up to you.